But our first presenter this afternoon, we're really delighted to have Dr. Kung here visiting with us. Dr. Hsiang-te Kung is a professor of geography and the director of the Confucius Institute at the University of Memphis. And so we have a colleague who is doing what Wei Gao is doing here in Memphis. And so it's great to have this opportunity to exchange notes with him. I learned that he is a geographer. He's been working in water resources for all of his career. It's really appropriate that he's here. Our Confucius Institute is focused on water and environmental sustainability. So we're unique in that we have this water focus. His institute has the benefit of having a water person there, but their focus is broader on Chinese culture and more like most of the Confucius Institute. So we're delighted to have him. One of the things that Wei Gao has pointed out is that Dr. Kung is a descendant of Confucius. So this is very unusual. He's the 75th generation descendant. So I don't know how many of you know who your 75th grandfather was, but when you have a grandfather as important and wise as Confucius, you want to know that, and we're really happy to have you here. So welcome, come on up, and we'll look forward to your talk as well. Please welcome Dr. Kung.
Well, thank you very much, Regan, and thank you all for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to come and visit the Confucius Institute at Colorado State University as well as Fort Collins. This is my first time to be in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado, and I'm really impressed by the university, by the quality of the students, and also by everything I've seen, and especially the warm hospitality given by Gao Wei and Harry and Glenn and Regan, and of course our Vice Provost for International Studies, Jim Cooney. And I met him last year in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and it already struck me and impressed me, and when I see him, I say, do you remember me? But he has a good memory, but I always remember him. So today I know we try to explore the possible collaboration and partnership and do some research together. And so my topic, I have several topics, but I get advice from Glenn and Harry said maybe this topic will be more appropriate. Therefore, I'm using this topic PPT I prepare to share with you. I know some of you are Chinese who already know a lot of problems and challenges we have in China, and also in the United States, we may have the same or different problems. So let me just go ahead with the time we have. Let me just go ahead. Is that a small button? Go first? Or
yeah,
forward. Top one.
Goes forward. The big one.
The big one. Okay, good. Thanks. So I'm going to talk about China because China has changed so much in the last 20, 30 years, especially after 1976. So my topic is really talk about emerging China, 中国的崛起. Not really. It's all right. I can just.
Okay. Let's see. Does the big one doesn't go?
Maybe
Okay.
I can just go ahead.
Okay.
This one.
Let me try something this way.
Let me see. Okay, so the outline of the presentation today is really give you some basic facts, basic facts about China. I know some of you already familiar with and been in China many times. And then second, I will talk about the industries, markets, and foreign trade. Because economy and environment usually go against each other. How to balance the economic growth as well as protect the environment in order to sustain, that's very, very important. And then we look into some of the challenges, some of the research we can possibly do in China and collaborate and work together. So as you know, this is part of China in the village, actually called the Jiangnan Suixiang. It's the water village near Shanghai area, and you see a lot of canals, you see a lot of water. China is just as big, as diverse as the United States. So geographic setting of China, and China has, when we talk about small cities, there will be more than a few millions. Here, a small towns, small cities, maybe several thousand, several hundreds. But you can really just get a general overview of China. If you overlay China with the United States, in terms of latitude, China go further south. Like in Hainan, you see Miami and south tips of Texas. they are still just barely between Chongqing and Guangzhou. And when you actually overlay China, in the northeast part of China, they call the Manchuria, actually in the old day called Manchuria, but now called Dongbei, northeast China. Harbin is further north of our New England. Seattle is really further, it's northwest of Urumqi, or almost, Minneapolis is almost in our outer Mongolia. So that's just give you a general geographic comparison between the United States and China in terms of latitude and the territory it covers.
The small button is a pointer if you want
To go back.
to point.
To point, okay, good. So here, if you look the size of the countries, of course, Russia, Canada, China, United States, Brazil, Australia, India, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, France, that's just in terms of square kilometer. But the percent of world land area, China has only 6.5% of the world land area. Okay, and the United States is 6.3, Russia has 11.5. And China is not as lucky, but when I was elementary school students, we always say, when we study China, China is one of the largest countries, and it has a lot of resources. But in reality, if you look at geography, the topographic maps, most of China actually would be, most of China would be like the Tibet Plateau, Qinghai, Xizang, Xizang, Tibet Plateau. It's actually not even inhabitable like Rocky Mountain area like Colorado. Although they are pretty, but they are very thin air. I went up to Rocky Mountain without getting too dizzy. But when I was in Lhasa, Tibet, my tongues, actually my lips turns black, and I'm really dizzy in the afternoon after I arrived. And that's just the high altitude syndrome. And of course, China has a lot of desert. And most of the area like Xinjiang, Tianshan, Xinjiang, and also Inner Mongolia, the Gobi Desert, that's all desert. And the most populated province is in Sichuan. Sichuan is the Red Basin. And then Yunnan is also a plateau, but also it's it's really the second tier of the plateau, and then come to southeast highland and hills. And the only the habitable area will be the Manchuria Plain, we call it Dongbei, Northeast China Plain, and also Huabei, North China Plain, and along the Yangtze River Delta, the Pearl River Delta. That's really the where people actually concentrate and cluster. The other area will accept Sichuan Basin. Otherwise, it will be very very scarcely populated. Through the history, Chinese population actually has grown exponentially, very, very fast. It has one of the largest world population. It has about 1.3, 1.4 billion. Okay, and that's a very conservative number. The China population grows till 2050. That's really what they predicted. It's going to be, of course, it's going to be superseded by India. And throughout the history, like in Han Dynasty, that has a lot of things to do with the census, population census, which is not as accurate as recently. But as we can tell, in the Han Dynasty, Sui Dynasty, Tang Dynasty, the population is not really that much. But when you get to Song Dynasty and Ming Dynasty, even the Qin Dynasty, and the population has really grown very sharply, and then finally we come to 1.3, 1.4 billion populations. That has a lot of things to do with the war, the drought, the flood, in the history, and also big earthquake in the histories. Here, just use the bar graph to show you about the populations in terms of figures. From 1970, 800 million, and then to 2015, it's about 1.4 billion. Population actually is the problem. Like John, Dr. Moore just say, you talk about human dimension of the world, you talk about the natural resources, the ecosystem, how those two interact, how those two really benefit from each other. And policy, the way to do things are very, very critical, very important. And this one simply shows the China's population by age groups from 1950 to 2050. One of the problems going to be happen in China, just like Japan, is the aging. A large population going to be about 50 years old, actually, from 2010 to 2050. 1950. So you're really going to have a very large population, in the older age. Compared to 1950, the large population actually is really for in this 20 to 49 years category. So you can really just see from the population, the demographic study and analysis, the impact of the natural resources and also the environment. Especially, for all these last 8 years I run the Confucius Institute, I found one of the most challenge is the cultural differences, the system differences. Of fiscal year in China is from January the 1st to December the 31st. The fiscal year in the United States is from July the 1st to June the 30th. And then here, it's democratic process in China. If the boss say, yes, do it, most likely you can get it done. So you got to understand the culture in order to really get things done. And Galway is the one really knows both cultures. And I learned a lot from him too, okay? He knows how things can work and then really make it work. So government, of course, the Communist Party, just right after lunch, we talk about in the university system, they have a secretary, a party secretary, but here we don't. The president actually is the head of the school. And then even in the college, you have the dean, but they have also the party secretary. They have different function, but it works differently. And you have to understand how those politics work. And although they have quite a few other parties, but those parties do not actually make the major decisions. And that's the People's Hall. And this just gives you some division of the administration regions. In general, you can see here is the People's Republic of China, and they have province. They have 5 autonomous region, special municipalities, which directly under the central government, and special administrative region like Hong Kong and Macau. And so those actually give you some idea about the political structure. In the province, you have a prefecture, the city, the autonomous prefectures, and also in the autonomous region, you have prefectures, city, and also the autonomous prefectures. And also you have further down to county, the city, and the township and towns, and so on and so forth. And of course, China has, when I was at elementary school, we have 36 provinces. Now they have actually 23 provinces, including Taiwan. Taiwan is actually another island which I grew up, but I think it's really one of the provinces in China. There are 5 autonomous regions: the Guangxi, Zhuang autonomous region, Inner Mongolia, Ningxia, Xizang, Tibet, and Xinjiang. Those are the autonomous region. And special municipalities which directly under the central government. That's Beijing, Chongqing. Chongqing now is the large populated city in China. Shanghai, Tianjin. Those are the 4 municipalities, special municipalities. Special administrative region, we call the SAR, but not the SARS epidemic. That's Hong Kong, Macau. Special administrative regions actually pursues the policy of one country and 2 system. Now, they hopefully, have 1 country, 3 systems, actually include Taiwan. Society is, after 1976, Deng Xiaoping said the economic reform, the open door policy, and that really helped Chinese economy to grow. And that gave the opportunity for Galway to actually enter one of the best university in China, the Nanjing University. He actually was the meteorologist. And it is also now it's more or less the market-driven become capitalist society, a socialist market-oriented economy. After 2001, China entered into WTO, World Trade Organization. Things getting much better, and also really follow the Western rules to do a lot of things like the patents and things like that. The economic relations with foreign countries have entered a new stage. And of course, even nowadays, although anti-corruption is one of the really top priority in the central government, but China tried to find a right legal system which can implement the laws. And education is very, very challenged. Of course, there are some very, very high prestigious universities in China like Tsinghua, Beida, Jiaotong Daxue, Fudan Daxue, and those are very, very first-tier Chinese universities. But if you go to the countries, there's a big disparity between the east and west, the city and country, the rural area. Science and technology, of course, some of the good universities do have a very, very advanced, high-tech area, and also students are well-trained, but not everywhere. Not like in the United States, we are more evenly distributed and populated. In terms of finance, I know you may not really got involved too much, and I did not either. And I know when I was in China, visited China in 1986, we still used the form called the 外汇券. It's just for foreigners, the currency for foreigners. But the banks is under the central government, or under the central bank. It is state-owned commercial bank. It's the nucleus of the financial market. The non-bank institutions controlled by the state capitals. You have trust and investment company, securities companies, insurance company, and even stock financial company. They are branch banks of foreign-funded banks, like all these banks I listed here, the construction bank and the bank of communication, and so on and so forth. Security business, sometimes it's very challenging in China. You really need to know what we call the guanxi, the network, and the relationships in order to get a lot of things done. And Shanghai Security Exchange, and also Shenzhen Security Exchange, those are stock market. The financial market, monetary market, foreign exchange market, and stock market is also very popular in China. I'm sure some of you have really noticed, yesterday I mentioned to my Chinese colleagues and friends, in the last 10, 15, 20 years, well, in 1986, when I visited China first time as a visiting professor in East China Normal University, I feel like China is really a dormant lion. And everything seems to be dormant. People wear blue and gray costumes all the time. But in the last 20 years, you see the best expressway and the highway, the expressway, and also iPhone. I don't even have an iPhone or iPhone myself. I'm still used old-fashioned. But Chinese usually have 1 or 2 or 3 iPhones, and we call it it's the not head generation. You always have the head down. You always you see people actually doing the iPhones. But highway, waterways, civil aviation, the infrastructure of the airport is just really really one first class, and even 3, 4, 5-star hotel is better than most of the hotel we stay even in the United States. Telephone in 1986, when I make a phone call from Hankou to Wuchang, it took me almost the whole day. Now you can really use your iPhone call worldwide without any problem. You can see the changes, the change of technology, the change of time. Mobile phone, internet is very, very accessible, but of course, internet, they have a very, very strict firewall to block, like Yahoo is moving out, and all this internet has some kind of limited control and also limited access. The industry market foreign trade, actually, this is Pudong in Shanghai. And most of the cities, even the moderate and middle-sized or small-sized cities, they always have skyscraper and also high, tall buildings. And that's just Pudong area. And economy, the growth, the GDP, the gross domestic products has increased very, very sharply from 2004 to 2014. I'm sure the professors actually make, when I was there, they make maybe in 1986, their average salary is about 100, 120 RMB. Now they are easily can make, if they are really diligent and work hard, and they can make 8,000 or 10,000 RMB without too much problem, which equivalent to about almost like $1,500 per month in this country. Economy in general, you can see the growth rate. There's the dip in 2009, but in general they are actually in a pretty good growth of from almost like 6.5% up to double digit, 13%. Now China tried to really keep in 7% GDP growth for the country. There are 3 industries in China and industrial policies. Of course, the primary industries like agriculture is actually declining, which include forestry, animal husbandry, fishery. The second industry includes the excavation industries, manufacturing industry, power supply, water supply, and heat supply. The tertiary industries include the service sector, government organization. That has really increased quite a bit. So you can see the proportion of the tertiary industries and employment has increased sharply, but the proportion of the primary and secondary industries and employment has decreased. So this will actually impact on the human resources in the urban versus rural area. So you can see in 1978 to 2008, and actually the change of the industry and also the service industries, okay? Please keep in mind this regional disparity in per capita income. There's a big difference between East Coast and West, the East and West, urban and rural. And this is just the really big regional differences and also urban and rural differences. The economy in the south of China is more developed than that in the north. From 1980 to 1990 and nowadays, the major consumer goods for Chinese families, of course, in the 80 and 90, people think, they are actually like to have color TV, refrigerator, washing machine, and nowadays housing is a big issue. The housing is a problem. Everybody actually like to have an automobile, which actually emit too much these gases, cause a lot of smoke problems in China. Of course, almost everybody has their computer and networked. So for quite a long time, the majority of income of Chinese families was mainly spent on food. And there were very few other expenses. But in recent years, the fundamental changes have taken place. People actually like to enjoy the life, and they even have more money to travel abroad. The new consumption hotspots in China, housing is a big problem and issue. Auto consumption, most of people can afford to buy the cars, but they have a hard time to even spend the money to buy the tech. And it's just quite different, and most Americans will not understand. But car is, the automobile, people actually really like to have automobile to show their social status to some extent, like BMW and Mercedes-Benz and all these Audi and foreign cars. They are much more popular in China than even in the United States. United States are much more realistic and more face reality. What is best for me? Telecommunication and electronic products, everybody like to have the best iPhone. Apple really make a lot of big business in China, just like in Shenzhen. They have an assembly and manufacturing plant for iPhone. The culture and education consumption is really kept rising quite a bit. It used to be free, but now, if you go to college, you really have to pay. The holiday consumptions, tourism consumptions, all these luxuries actually have increased quite a bit. Okay, retail spending has increased 15% and more in the recent years. Consumer confidence, one of the problems for China in the last few years is the safety of food, the food safety. I'm sure this related to we don't really worry too much. Everybody like to buy organic food. But China, some of you may have heard about this dairy, the dairy powder, the Naifen. The dairy powder has some kind of contamination, which caused the infants to die. And food safety is really a challenge. So the Chinese consumer confidence remained high even during the worldwide recession in 2008 and 2009. China has already become the world's largest market for automobiles, television sets, and cell phones, and the world's second largest market for luxury goods. So for business college, if they really want to actually make business and make China, just like Coca-Cola company, and the telephone company and all these companies, they can make a good business in China because of the population. That's why our Confucius Institute has these Asian studies and international trade, try to really teach the students about the culture and also language, as well as prepare them for some kind of skill, the business. the great changes in consumption habits have taken place, especially from generation to generation. Like Professor Gao actually would not really, he's very conservative, but he's very kind to friends. But now the next generation, they will spend the money in the luxury items without blink their eyes because their parents really help them and subsidize for them. In 2005, there were 13 million credit cards in China, but in 2008, the number had increased to almost 150 million. Even nowadays, everybody carry credit cards, but that wasn't really the case, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. Online shopping also become more popular, like you guys heard of Alibaba. Alibaba actually, make a big business, although the stock market actually declined a little bit due to the internal management and structures. Foreign trade and investments, the Chinese market offers great business opportunities due to its rapid economic growth and huge market. And we have, in Memphis, FedEx has 2 hubs in China. And also, I think, they have a lot of architecture firms went to China to actually help design the hospital and to help design a lot of other major structures and buildings. China also increased its imports and exports over the decades. The increase of Chinese products competitively led to an expansion of their shares in the international market. And also, they try to encourage more import-export. The Chinese government reduced the administrative obstacles to improve its attractiveness to the foreign investors. Almost a lot of cities do have the special economic zones, not like in the 70s, they only have 4 cities. The government efforts pay off with an increase in exports to countries such as United States, European Union, Hong Kong, Japan, ASEAN countries, and South Asia. As the country prospers, the standard of living improved and also increased the amount of imports overseas, many from Japan, European Union, and also South Korea, ASEAN countries, and the United States. So this just gives you some statistics and data about the exports, imports, and the balance. And you can see, China, if you can see from January to December in 2004, and they actually, the trade in goods with China. You can see the numbers. So I'm not going to much detail for these numbers, but if you're interested, I'd be happy to share with you on these numbers. 3 major types of direct investment in China. And they are always referred to as foreign direct investments, which is sufficiently large to affect the company's subsequent decisions. This is sometimes a majority ownership, but sometimes it's just a significant minority ownership. So there are different types of joint business in China. Equity joint venture, the contractual joint venture, or wholly foreign-owned enterprise. So when Americans want to do business in China, they really have to understand the rules and the culture, the guidelines in China. So some of the tips for doing business in China: the China market is getting more and more competitive each year as the domestic industries increase their brand equity and also the increase of foreign giants entering into China. The foreign investors may need to consider how to market their products to the Chinese. The fastest and most efficient way is to find a local party for help. To minimize any delays with the government procedures, it would be better for foreign investors to cooperate with a local party to handle the paperwork, since the locals are familiar with the procedure. The foreign companies actually would need to have a good grasp of the Chinese culture before they actually enter into the Chinese market. But that's something I try to advise our local business people who want to really go to China and do business. We did help quite a few business people in Memphis area, and they've been very successful and very, very thankful for our Confucius Institute because of our connections. The challenges in the 21st century. First is the centralized political system versus decentralized economic system. And that's the Chinese, we call the Chinese style, Chinese way of doing things. They actually separate the political and economy, although they are related. There's an inadequate transportation in some of the rural area, but in major cities, there's not really much problem. Communication in general is very, very good. Energy resources is a problem. China has to import a lot of oil and a lot of gas from even Siberia, from Saudi Arabia and Africa. Economic disparity between urban and rural. And number 4, that's the one I really admire and really respect. Confucius Institute here in this university try to tackle the problem. Number 4 is the environment is deteriorating very fast because of the economic growth in China, especially the air pollution, the soil erosion, the fall of water table, the groundwater depletion in the north. Even they were thinking about to move the capital of Beijing, to Henan and to the south. And the food security, the food safety, like I mentioned, is really a big concern, and also over-reliance on carbohydrate, depletion of natural resources, land degradation, and desertification. Right now, I'm really collaborating and partner with Xinjiang University. One of my postdocs actually work on land use, land cover changes in the oasis area, and also through irrigation. And also they looked at soil salinization in the desert environment due to irrigation by using the remote sensing technique. So land degradation and desertification is a problem. And China actually has some major project which actually we can learn from, and they can learn from us as well. It's called the Water Transfer Project. It has the East Nile, the Middle Nile, and the West Nile. The East Nile is completed. They are pretty much follow the Sui Dynasty Grand Canal and pump the water from Yangtze River all the way to the Yellow River to Beijing and Tianjin. But the middle section actually go from Hubei, north of Wuhan, in Danjiang Suiku, Danjiang Reservoir, and all the way up to middle section of the Yellow River. And the western Nile actually go from the Tibet Plateau, all the way to the northwest, like in Gansu province. Okay, Three Gorge Dam actually was built. The water transfer project, like I mentioned to you, actually create a lot of environmental problem. Whether it's good or bad is still debatable. Right now, I have some collaboration with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. It's called the Three Gorge Ecologic Monitor Station. They try to monitor how that Three Gorge Dam has any impact on the environment, like subduction zones of the reservoir, and also their species. China, the Yangtze River sturgeon actually is almost diminished. The White River dolphin actually is diminished due to the water quality, due to the construction of the dam. The natural hazards, actually, the flood and drought in China in the last few years, actually it's become very, very severe. Energy consumption and pollutions. Those are the problems I think we can think about it. We can possibly find a niche or ground between our university or between among all of us to tackle and to study. And the energy consumption and pollutions. China actually, in the central government, they try to focus on the Western development, the Xibu Kaifa, the development of the West, because they are way behind. Of course, Xi Jinping, right now, the president, tried to really correct the corruption problems. They arrest some of the high government officers, including the military, the former general of the military, got impeached, but he luckily passed away before they actually tried to sentence him.
By yesterday, there were 99 vice ministers
impeached.
And jail, actually.
See?
99.
Yeah.
Less than 2 years.
100. But HIV and some epidemic disease and problems still very prevailing. One of the highest HIV instances actually is in Henan province. It's really due to a lack of understanding and knowledge of giving out the blood and also using the same syringe all the time. So those things can be improved through education, through, of course, our science research and studies. Resources, as you know, Regan, let me know if the time is up. Okay. I don't want to take other people's time. Well, China has a rich reserves of natural resources, yet they are very, very low on capital basis. If you divide the resources by the capita or by the population, it is small. Large population become an obstacle for modernization. And when Chairman Mao, before the one-child policy, he said the more people we have, the more human power, more resources we have. But that concept has actually being corrected. The rapid population growth makes it very, very difficult to raise the people's living standard. Population is a large, and it's really, actually, it's a problem from the beginning. And you can see, we call it, in China, we call it the little emperor and little empress, because with one-child policy, parents would be very easy to spoil the kid. And then when the kid got sick, 6 adults, the father's parents, the mother's parents, 6 of them would take care of that kid. So if you want to do business and make money, concentrate and focus on that one child, and you can really, you won't do anything wrong. And this just gives you some idea about the population. This is called the population pyramid. And when I teach the geography, I always bring the population and show them about the population structures by age, by gender, male and female. And of course, the girls will be much more precious in China because of that traditional Chinese. They always like to have boy. So boy is, you have more boys than girls. So later on, I think the boys will not find the bride and find the girls. So I think girls are more precious. But this just gives you some idea about the male and female by age and also by gender. You can see this another chart. Okay, due to time, I try to regional differences, inherent differences in physical environment between the east and west. The humid versus the dry. Okay, in China, just like in the United States, it is 100 degrees longitude. It's really divide the United States into the humid part of the United States and also the dry part between east and also result of concessions in the reform policies. And here just show you about the urban in Shanghai, Pudong versus some rural area. Policy is very, very important. The failure in the past and also the remedy. And if you really, if they don't really make those wrong policy, China will be much different today than 20, 30 years ago. 3 major blunders in history. There's no birth control before 1960. Additional 200 to 250 million population actually have increased. Irrational planning, like Great Leap Forward in the 1957, 1958, the starvation, due to the drought, and also there's a lot of this political movement. The Cultural Revolution put China almost 50 years behind in terms of education, science, technology, and the trust between the people and among the people. And this just gives you some idea about the current situation, but if you have a correct policy implemented, you can really improve all these. If correct policy is implemented, then the China population will decrease 83.6%, and then total GDP will increase, and then the per capita will increase, degree of poverty will decrease, forest coverage will increase, and all these other negative soil erosion and municipal waste, all this can be decreased. So just give you the relationship between the population and also natural resources. Does China actually first pollute and then control? That policy works? Just like when I teach urbanization and environment, how do you really balance the two? The urban growth versus environmental degradation. And how do you balance this, in order to reach to a better living environment? High population density, weak economic base. Look the pollution problems in China. And a lot of people still suffering downwind. When I went to Beijing 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even nowadays, the sky, you can hardly see this blue sky or even the blue sun, except maybe in 2008 when they have Olympic. The government forced all the industries to move in the suburbs, move out of the cities. So that improved quite a bit. But otherwise, you see Xi'an will be almost like that. When I was in Xi'an with my students for the study abroad, we have to really wear the mask to breathe because the pollution is a serious problem. Environmental cost of development. The red tides cost 120 million losses to fishing industries in Bohai, Yellow, and South China Sea. The toxic spills kill 2 million kilograms of fish in 2 rivers in Anhui in July 2000, and which cost 12 million RMB. The reduced sunlight due to soot and dust reduced almost 70% of China's farms by 5 to 30%. Nearly 60% of the vegetable crops in Chongqing was damaged by acid rain in the 1990s. Every year, 180,000 hectares of farmland become salinized. 200,000 hectares turn into desert. 2 million hectares of pasture actually degraded. So you can see how environment being degraded due to the misuse of the land and also the wrong policy and not pay attention. Erosion claims 5 billion tons of soil each year. They wash away the nutrients equivalent to 54 million tons of chemical fertilizers. But in 2000, 80%, greater than 80% of the children aged 5 to 7 in Guangzhou had unhealthful lead poison or lead levels in blood. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease is the leading cause of deaths in China, which exceeds 1 million deaths, one-eighth of the total, attributable to air pollution in the 90s and even nowadays. Pollution-related illness, which causes the workers to miss work, also to be less productive on the job. 4.5 million persons per year of labor productivity were lost due to air pollution in 1995. So you got to really look at the development versus ecological degradation. Exploration of natural resources actually will lead into natural and man-induced disasters. Before the Qing dynasty, greater than 50% of the Loess Plateau was covered by forests. And also forest cover is 90% to 90% of Sichuan and Yunnan province. Now China realized that they actually have a major project called the forest wall, like Great Wall, to be planted and prevent the dust storms. Over cultivations, grazing, and deforestation, the drought, floods, desertification still occur. The occurrence of disasters has increased in the history of China, both in terms of frequency and magnitude. So that's pretty much what I have to share with you. I know some of you have maybe even more experience and knowledge than I do, but this is what I have learned and studied and experienced, and I share with all of you. Thank you for your patience and attention.
Thank you, Dr. Kong.
Thank you.